Shaking currents, their footsteps shake the ground. Unyielding force, destruction all around. Mechanical waters, relentless in the quest. Unleashing chaos, they will not rest. Rise of the automaton, an army forged in steel, crushing all in the path. Their enemies they will reveal. From the depths of the ocean, they emerge with might. Mechanical fury, a force that cannot be denied.
So anyway, Warhammer 40,000. I've been looking for a chance to talk about this. It's been my obsession for the last 3 years, but I only recently got into playing it like properly, and now I'm like moving into the competitive scene. So I wanted to spend some time talking about it because it's a big passion of mine. It's like my primary hobby outside of watching anime. So anyway, the year is 2020. Russia has just invaded. Oh wait, that was the year after. God damn it. 2020 was Corona. Anyway, it's May 2020, and everybody's in lockdown. I'm unemployed at the time, and I find this video game called Mechanicus. It's a Warhammer 40,000 based video game where you play as a squad of tech priests invading and violating Necron tomb complexes. It's a pretty good game. The soundtrack is fucking fire. You should look it up if you haven't heard it. And yeah, so the game is sick, and Necrons are, spoiler alert, they're my love. They're my baby. So in the game, you run around and you kill a lot of Necrons, and at some point in the game, you come across this enemy, like this unit called a Deathmark, which is like a Cyclops sniper robot. It's the coolest shit ever. I maintain that it's still the sickest, like, small infantry model in the game. Like, obviously the big show pieces are several $100 and they're much cooler, but for like a squad of dudes, they're so fucking cool because they like teleport all around. They're snipers. They're stealthy, silent killer robots. So I saw this enemy in the game, and I was like, well, that's it. Now I have to purchase this. Because the game, like the models and the game had been on my consciousness for a very long time. I used to, in the library in my hometown, every once in a while I would go there and look at the White Dwarf magazines, which is like the Games Workshop official magazine about the games they make, which is Warhammer, and it's Warhammer 40,000. It's and a bunch of others like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, Necromunda. And I remember as a young teen looking at these pictures of, I mean, objectively shitty models by today's standards, thinking they're the coolest shit ever. I had no idea how the game worked at all. Some of my classmates started collecting Bretonnians and stuff like that for like original Warhammer Fantasy battles. And I mean, none of us knew how to play it, but I went out and I got like an orc war boss on a wyvern, and I got some skeletons and some zombies, and painted them horribly. Didn't know you had to prime them. Couldn't afford a lot of colors, so they all just looked like absolute garbage. Also got some goblins, I think. Yeah. So anyway, I'm a known skeleton enjoyer, so when I see robot skeletons in 40,000, I'm sold, right? So my first thought, as anyone who is starting out in Warhammer 40,000, you look at the units, you look at the size of the armies people are playing, and you think, holy shit, that's $3,000 at least, right? I could not defend that kind of investment for myself at the time. still kind of challenging to do that. But it all built up over time. But at the time, and they still do, I guess, they had a game called Kill Team. It was at version 1 back then. And to play Kill Team, all you need is like upwards of 10 models. It's like this tiny little skirmish level version of the bigger game where a crack team of specialists do missions inside the bigger scope of the universe, right? So I have never played Kill Team. I gaslit myself into thinking, oh, I could get the Necron Start Collecting box, which had, I believe, 5 Immortals / Death Marks. Like, the main thing I wanted was Death Marks. So this box was honestly pretty great. You got an Overlord, you got 5 Immortals that can also be built as Death Marks. So I did 3 Immortals and 2 Death Marks, I think, for the Kill Team. You got 10 Warriors, which you also need for the Kill Team, like just trash infantry. What else did you get? Like, you got an Annihilation Barge that could also be built as a Catacomb Command Barge, which they're kind of shit. They've always been shit. I didn't really need them for the Kill Team at all, but it came in the box, and it's pretty cool. So I got this box. I painted up my Kill Team. Had a lot of fun doing that. I never got to play Kill Team, because shortly thereafter, Kill Team was updated, and now you can only use these pre-built teams. Like, you make a team of all warriors or all immortals, and in version 1 of the game, you could mix and match however you liked, which I thought was way cooler. Now it's okay, because you can buy this pre-made Kill Team full of like custom Necrons, and it's cool as shit. I have it. Still haven't played Kill Team. I just like the different heads and the death marks. You got a Cryptek. It's just a decent box of units, honestly, for not a lot of money. But yeah, so this was like May 2020, still in 8th edition of the game. That summer they announced 9th edition, and Necrons are the big baddie. So they get a lot of focus, like a huge range refresh. A bunch of their old models get replaced by new, much more tasty models. And the best part is, at the beginning of every edition, there's the big like launch box. And it's always Space Marines. Has to be Space Marines. They're the poster boys. They're the biggest player base. That's how Games Workshop makes their money, is Space Marines. Sorry. So everybody went out and bought this huge box of a bunch of new Space Marines fighting a bunch of new Necrons. But everybody just wanted the Space Marine half. That means all the Necron collectors, all the classy undead enjoyers like me, could go on eBay and pick up bucket loads of cheap second-hand models that no one wanted, because all they wanted were all the new Space Marine stuff. So suddenly I have like 100 warriors. I have all this weird elite infantry. I have all these little bespoke units in the box. And I have suddenly this huge collection of models, enough to play the game. But I'm still very intimidated by it. So for like 2 years, all I did was buy and paint models until I was at the point where I had, I think, 7,000 points worth of Necrons, which is enough to build 3.5 tournament armies. And I had never played a game. So December 31st of 2020... God, when was this? 2020, 2021, and then 20... Oh, we're just exiting 23. It was so at the tail end of 2022, I asked, like, in a big Facebook group of, like, the city I work in, there's a hobby store called Pharaoh's Cigars. It's like a Tintin comic reference. So I ask in there, hey, I have a bunch of Necrons, and I would like to play a game, and I'm very, very new. So this guy, Kenneth, replies, he's a nice guy. And we have our first game, and he plays Drukhari, Dark Eldar, like evil elves, and he just wipes the floor with me first game, which is completely expected, right? I didn't. I had a generally good understanding of the game from watching battle reports, which is like that's like the slang for a recorded game, right? So the availability of recorded Warhammer games has became like crazy good right around when I started collecting in 2022. And it's only gotten better since. There's like weekly coverage from tournaments at Wargames Live. That's a channel, Wargames Live. He streams basically every weekend. There's like several times a week updates on Tabletop Titans. There's a bunch of channels making this stuff. And it helps you get a pretty good understanding of the game, even if you don't play. So for my first game, I just brought a bunch of bullshit, right? Some horrible tanks, some bad, like, just no synergies. I had no strategy. I had no tactics. I didn't know what his units did besides punch hard and move fast, which they did. Like, there was no way for me to avoid anything, and he just wiped the floor with me. Next game, I go against another relatively new player at the time, playing Tau. Tau are a weird army because they only shoot. They have one phase and it's shooting. They don't interact in melee at all. And Necrons kind of don't either. Not a lot. All the best builds don't really do melee whatsoever. They just rely on trickery and shooting. Movement shenanigans. And that game, if I had remembered a rule, I would have won it by like 1 or 2 points. But technically, like when you leave, the game is what it is, right? I lost by a little bit, but it was a pretty good game. I had a much better understanding of it at that time. Almost immediately, I signed up for my first little tournament called an RTT. That's a one-day tournament with 3 games. And first game, I got matched against another Necron player. Beat him. He was not very good. At that point in time, I had like maybe 15 games. Like, I understood the game a lot better. This guy was just not very good at it at all. Also very slow. Like, we only got to round 3 in 3.5 hours, which is like the game allotted for a time. Oh, wait, the time allotted for a game. Sorry, I flipped it all around. We only got to turn 3, which is unbelievably slow. Like, he had to look up everything all the time. It's very important to know your data sheets, know your rules, right? Just to speed up the game and not bog down your opponent. Yeah. And then I forget the second round of it. Yeah, I forget that. Last game, though, I play against this Dutch guy, Tim, who I've gotten, I don't know, friends, like casual acquaintances. Like, we play a lot together. I joined him for some team tournament back in September. We just did some practice yesterday. He's a really, really cool guy, and he knew I was new. Like, I show up there, right, and I see his objective markers on the table, which is like how you know where to stand to score points. He brought his own, which were branded WTC 2021. WTC is the World Team Championship. This motherfucker had been on the Dutch team, like World Team Championship team in 2021. He knew his shit. He was playing Tyranids. So he was very nice to me, right? He taught me a bunch of weird little tricks you could do, while also just casually beating me. Not crushing me, but beating me. Making sure I had a good time. At some point after that, I got bored of Necrons, because Necrons at the time had one playstyle and it was not very good. Like, you could not kill anything. Necrons were one of the first codices of 9th edition, and with the power creep of 9th edition, by the end of it, it was one of the weakest armies. Stuff just died, and we couldn't kill anything. Our only hope of scoring points was to, like, rush out, do some actions, stand in places, and hope we survive long enough to score enough points to win by turn 3. And that was not very fun for me. So I picked up, I think I had picked up the year prior, the Chaos Knights army box that got released alongside a new Chaos Knight model and some new kits for like the little robots. So I had one big boy and I had a bunch of little ones, and I signed up for a tournament, a big 2-day tournament. Was it Slaumark? I think it was. And I show up with one big knight and 10 small ones, because at the time that was how you did it. And the Chaos Knights at the time were extremely fun. Like they mess up enemy movement, they mess up enemy leadership, so they fail morale more easily. And when they fail morale, all kinds of bad things happen, because that's the whole shtick for Chaos Knights is to manipulate leadership and morale and like make you take extra damage when units run away, stuff like that. So those are my two armies that I have, are Necrons, a lot of them, and then currently I have 2 big knights and I think 14 small ones. Because kind of the thing right now is to run Chaos Knights, you run like 13 models, 13 little ones. Because what you really want is a lot of units, not just big scary units. Although that's just more fun, right? But the competitive option is to run a bunch of small boys and some demon allies to teleport around and do actions. It's a whole thing, right? Anyway, discussing the game just a little bit. It is a monumental task, right? You play in two. The way you balance a game like this is that you build armies from a budget of 2,000 points. Every model has a point cost. So a single Space Marine, a Primaris Intercessor Space Marine, like the basic troop they can take, I think is 17 points. So for a squad of 10, you pay 170. And that's how, like, Games Workshop puts a value on each unit, and that is how you balance it out. So sure, maybe 10 Assault Intercessor Marines. That's 150 points. That's a bargain. They don't cost anything. Also, they're not super good. Like, they're not competitive at all because they kind of just die, right? But if I want to take 10 Necron Warriors who are like comparable in stats but half the health, those are 110 points for 10, and then you can double it up for 220 points and take 20 models. And now you have this really big, huge unit that it shoots bad, it dies easily, but there's 20 guys. That means you have to activate 20 times to kill them. Like, you have to get 20 attacks through, and I have to fail all my armor saves. And that makes the unit durable, because come start of my turn, models are gonna resurrect. And that's a pain in the ass for my opponent, because that's like Necron's whole thing, is they reanimate. They are space robots, skeleton zombies, Terminators. So you show up with your 2,000 point army, and it's never actually balanced. Like, they have these knobs they can turn, point cost and the strength of the data sheets on their own, but no two factions will ever be truly equal. There will always be weird busted combos you can do, or units that are way too efficient for their price. But so basically, how you play competitive Warhammer is you find, okay, this combo is good. How do I make it the cheapest it can be? And then you just take multiple of them, right? You take 3. and then you just have these like little payloads you can deliver here and there, and then you still have a bunch of stuff left to actually play the game and score points. For Necrons, the whole thing right now is these lore-wise, it's a rabbit hole. I'm not gonna explain it too much, but like these shattered gods they can bring that are way too cheap for how durable they are, and like they're okay at killing stuff. They punch decently hard, but they're not like people are freaking out about them just because it's like, oh, they're oppressive, but really I don't think they do that much. They can barely kill each other. They can just pop off and take out a tank. That can just happen, but it's definitely not guaranteed. So you show up to the game with your 2,000 points, and like you take turns deploying. You roll for who goes first. Maybe you have like weird pre-game moves and tricks you can do, and then you just stand there for 3.5 hours. You like you have to remember all your data sheets, all your stratagems, all your rules, and you have to have a general knowledge of your opponents. Because if they get shit wrong and you don't know that it's wrong, then who's gonna stop them from just doing whatever they want? And I'm pretty good at that. Like I remember I have weird like I don't know what it's called when it's not photographic memory because it's like text, but I remember these weird little snippets about the rules of random units I've never played just because I've seen them pop up here and there. So anyway, you hang out with this opponent for 3.5 hours, and you try to have a good time, right? Like, sportsmanship can vary, but generally it's a collaborative game. Like, your opponent moves a unit, and you say, if you do that, I can do this. And now they have some information that maybe they had forgotten, and maybe they undo what they were about to do. And most, like 99% of the time, you just have a great time. It's so much fun. Like it's a game that scratches all the right spots in the brain. It's so nice. God, I love it. But the thing is, I play in an environment of very, very strong players and very competitive players. Like basically we play on Wednesdays. So like putting up a post saying, hey, who wants to play on Wednesday? You're guaranteed that you're going to get paired into some motherfucker who is testing a list for a tournament, and it's not going to be an easy time. That means I've also had to develop as a player quickly to not just get stomped every single time, right? But it's also stressful, because when you're playing high level games, and you have to consider all the opponent's trickery while also considering all the shit you can do and managing resources, it's very draining. And so Necrons just got a new codex, and it's extremely strong. People are kind of freaking out, like it's oppressively strong, but I don't think so. We can do a lot of movement shit, which is a very good way of scoring points, but offensively, I really don't think we're that impressive. Certain armies at release of this new edition, we're in 10th edition right now, it came out this summer. On release, certain factions were busted to a degree that it makes it hard for me to believe that whoever wrote their rules ever spoke to anyone else on the team or read the rules for the other factions. Like, there's no way that whoever wrote the Eldar Index, because that's the thing, like at the start of 10th edition, all rules got reset. Everybody got an index, like 1 detachment, 6 stratagems, and then they got rules for all their data sheets. So everybody was on equal footing, but the indexes were not written by the same people. So 2 of them, Eldar and Chaos Space Marines, were busted beyond belief. It was fucking crazy what they could do at the beginning. And only now, after 6 rounds of nerfs, are Eldar kind of reasonable. They're still really strong. They're still going to show up in every tournament, and you're going to have to come up with a way to deal with them. Because they just do everything. They have every keyword on every gun, and they don't have to roll their dice to get 6s, which is fucking a crazy mechanic, and I don't know how anyone thought that was okay. Chaos Space Marines got nerfed so hard. Like, they got nerfed like Eldar should have been back in September. But, yeah. So, Chaos Space Marines have been dominating the meta until this January. Like, starting, like, after September and then to January. Like, those 3 months. Chaos Space Marines were kind of fucking crazy because everything was just way too cheap and efficient. And they got nerfed so hard. Like they owed Games Workshop money, right? It's fucking crazy. They have completely fallen off the competitive scene. Meanwhile, Eldar kind of stayed up there. But in December, Necrons got a new codex. And it's really, really strong. Basically, there's a bunch of new detachments, and 2 of them are very good. One, because it gives rerolls to a bunch of like mediocre models, units you can take. Makes them better, still not incredible. But what it does is it makes them really tough. It lets them move out of phase. It lets them make themselves untargetable when being shot at. All these weird little tricks they can do. And for skilled players, they're incredible. I think they are the strongest in the hands of like the people who win GTs and know the tricks. They can do crazy things with the toolkit that detachment provides. The other one, the one that people are scared of, it's called Hypercrypt Legion, and it's all about these big pyramids that Necrons can take. They're called monoliths, which are extremely tough tanks that hover all around. And what they can do in Hypercrypt is that at the end of the opponent's turn, you can remove units and put them in reserves. Like, you can take them off the board temporarily. It doesn't have to be the monoliths, but it's gonna be the monoliths. Because what they can do is they can deep strike. That means they can come down on the board 9 inches away from the opponent anywhere they want. So you do that every turn. You reposition your 2 or 3 big fucking pyramids. And then they just blast the enemy. And they teleport an infantry unit to them. Which can then be set up like out inside 6 of the pyramid. Then they can shoot and move another 5. So that means anywhere on the board you want to be, you can just be there. Another thing you can do in that detachment is just anything coming in from teleport, you can set it up outside 3 instead of 9. Which is insane. Like, the mobility that this detachment offers is unprecedented. It's fucking nuts, and I love it so much. But it's also very brain intensive. Playing it is taxing in a way that I've never experienced in Warhammer before. Because Necrons used to be just move forward, hope you don't die. Then they kind of stayed that way in 10th edition in the Index, where like they were mid-tier, kind of. They had some good synergies in the Index, but nothing insane, except you could put a bunch of characters in a squad of something called Lich Guard, which are like Royal Guard, Shield, and Sword warriors, who are not very strong, but it made them durable like you wouldn't believe. They were impossible to get rid of. They got nerfed. They also got made cheaper, but like the stuff that made them unkillable went away, so now they die much easier, but they're much cheaper, so they're kind of okay. Like, they got nerfed the right way, right? They lost the synergies, and they also got made cheaper because now they don't have the synergies and they're just an okay melee unit. That's how you nerf something. What was I saying? Jeez, oh man, I forgot completely. Yes, playstyles, that's it. So, 10th edition, start of 10th edition, you were still just pushing all your units forward, hoping they didn't die. You could deep strike some stuff normally, but you could not remove it again and re-deep strike it. Hypercrypt allows you to undo your mistakes. Like you have a unit in the wrong spot, well, now you just move them. You take them away and you put them back. You can do this with anything. You can do this with the monoliths. You can do this with planes that have like big fuck off guns. You could do it with the gods shards, which your enemy does not want. These hyper durable living gods, shattered Pokemon, whatever. They do not want that behind their deployment zone on turn 1 or 2. That is bad news for everybody. A famous example, like the one example that catapulted Hypercrypt Legion into the stratosphere, was the winner of the LVO. The Las Vegas Open is this gigantic, like it's like the biggest tournament of the year. And it takes place in, I think, January, where this guy, Matt Laura, he deep struck, turn 1 deep struck a monolith into the enemy deployment zone, deposited a unit with this character called Emotech, which has a flamer. And then the monolith proceeded to kill one or two tanks. Yeah, it did kill one. And then it also killed like a squad of infantry, and then the squad with the warlord guy killed another unit. So that one little gambit killed 3 units. It forced the opponent, like the Eldar player in this case, to pivot all of his stuff, go back to his deployment zone, try to... Like, the flamer on Emotech made it so he didn't want to put... Like, he had some units that would be really good at taking out 10 infantry dudes. But moving into shooting range would mean they get overwatched, and now that, like, whatever he puts there just dies. So he pulls back this like a big fat shooter unit, and this one unit called the Incarn, which is an absolute beast in melee, who then proceeds to attack the monolith, wound it twice, and then if Matt failed a single one of his saves, he had 6 up, he had to roll a 6 on 2 dice to avoid damage. If he failed a single one of them, the Incarn would just automatically do 7 damage and finish off the monolith. And he rolled boxcars, 2 6s, and history was made.
If he makes both of these are huge, but if he fails 1, he's automatically dead. If he fails 2, he's dead without having to use a fate.
Oh my god!
Oh my god, he just made both 6-ups. He fails 1, and the monolith dies. As it is, the monolith lives. The monolith lives, can shoot his backfield to pieces, can summon another unit back there. This is horrifying for Folger. 1 in 36 to get punished like that.
Holy shit.
I just don't even know what could be going through Folger's mind at this point.
Oh my god. Hit me back.
Because now the monolith got to stay there for another turn. It killed another tank, and then it promptly died in return, right? Like, it should have been dead. But that play... I feel so bad for the Eldar player, because everybody was just memeing on it. Like, how did you not screen out this big fat pyramid that could just land in your backfield? How did you fail to do that? It would have been so simple to do, but he didn't. He fucked up, and now there was a pyramid on. It also let the Necron player steal the home objective of the opponent turn 1 and score 8 points on a secondary mission. Anyway, So yes, Necrons now went from this weird stat checky, push everything forward and see if my opponent can kill it, to this really technical teleport all around the place, get weird angles, shoot, and then before the opponent can respond, you just like maybe they move up a bunch of guys to charge a unit, but before they can do that, you teleport away and now you're somewhere else. Or you just say, bring it, and then the monoliths kind of weirdly fucking melee too. Like you charge them with 3 Terminators, they're probably dying. The 3 Terminators are probably dead. And the monolith will take some damage, like they're not immortal. They're just really, really tough. You can just kill them. I have seen them just die to nonsense plenty of times, because I love my monoliths. They're so fucking cool. They're iconic. But now they're also kind of like the meta pick. And if there's one thing I hate, I don't want anyone to think I'm copying what the meta is doing. I was running monoliths before it was cool. Like half a year ago at tournaments, when they didn't really do anything special, you couldn't flip-flop them all around. I was still running 2 and getting results. Because they're just good tanks. Like, they're so tough. They're slow, sure, but they can shoot damn hard. And then they let you teleport units all around. So, it's, yeah. They're just great, and I love them so much. But they're gonna get nerfed. Probably the Catan, the God Shards are gonna get nerfed. Wraiths, Canoptech Wraiths, which are like the new durable objective holder unit, might get nerfed. Like, it's kind of shit. It's tough as hell, but it doesn't do anything other than live. I think Necrons are in for a nerf, but I just hope it's not fucking crazy, like, overreaction, because the win rate is only at 55 or 56% or something. Like, it's nowhere near the other, like, the absolute meta beasts of last half a year of Eldar and Chaos Space Marines, who were both like just reaching 70% at their heights, which is absurd. 70% win rate for tournaments is unheard of. It's so high, and it makes no sense that they didn't nerf Eldar sooner or better than they nerfed them several times, like game-changing nerfs that changed mechanics in the game because Eldar were the ones abusing them. And it took 5 or 6 rounds of nerfs to get them into an okay place. Chaos Space Marines got turbo nerfed right away. It was fucking crazy. So yeah, I've been going to a lot of tournaments, and I just went a couple weeks ago to a big one called MidCon. I ended up placing 22nd out of 80 or something. I did okay. I won 3 of my matches. I lost 2. I lost my first game because it was a Necron Hypercrypt mirror match, where instead of 2, I brought 2 monoliths because I loved them. He brought 3 of this tank called the Doomsday Ark, which is very good at killing monoliths, it turns out. So my monoliths whiffed and did not kill either Doomsday Ark. In response, the Doomsday Arks killed one monolith, and then his Catan killed the other. And then from there, it was just a downhill trajectory. I still did okay. Like, he only beat me by, I think, 3 points. So I kept up pretty well, even though I had very few assets left. Then I played... What did I play? I think I went on to play... Was it Drukhari? Yeah, Drukhari. Who I, like, violated. Destroyed. But like in a fun way. In a loving way, right? Because they are a very fast army who have done horribly for the last 6 months. Like one of the weaker indexes. So they out of pity, Games Workshop gave them a new detachment just for free. And it made them way better. But still, they're made of wet tissue paper. They can hit absurdly hard, but getting there is almost impossible for them. Like, a glass cannon is too generous of a term. We need to find a material more brittle than glass. Something that kills itself if it steps on, I don't know, if it touches the ground. Wet tissue paper cannons. So yeah, they can just fuck you up. But when I can just, like, I can deep strike a unit of 3 okay and, like, really good, actually, anti-infantry guns, split the unit into 3 targets, and kill all 3, that's absurd. There's no other army I can imagine doing that to. Because they just don't, their toughness is low, they have 1 wound, their armor saves suck ass. Anything you touch them with, they just crumble to dust. It can be hilarious to see. Third game was another Necron game, and it was into the very durable detachment called Canoptech Court, where so he shows up with 3 of all the good shit in that, right? And I do end up winning because I'm able to just, like, outmove him, jump up and down, take the stuff I need, score the shit I need, and slowly but surely, like, whittle away at his units while they, like, anemically try to take out my stuff. Because Canoptech stuff hits on 4s. His detachment lets them reroll hits. That can make them okay. Makes them better than complete shit. But I have some stuff in my army that reduces the hit roll by 1. That means all his tanks are now hitting me on 5s. And sure, they're re-rolling, but 3 anti-infantry tanks shot at 1 squad of 10 guys. And they didn't kill it. Which is just unheard of. It was so bad. They suck so bad. The Wraiths are very durable until you snipe the character. So I did that, and then the Wraiths just die. So by the end of the game, he had nothing left, and I still had a bunch of weird little scoring units. And I could just sit on objectives and get points, and there was literally nothing he could do about it. It ended up being a pretty big loss for him. Played some Marines the next day, who I beat by very little. Marines are in a very scary place where you cannot possibly predict what you're going up against. They have so many different, like, sub-factions and detachments, and you can mix and match them any which way. The strongest one, I think, well, there's several. One of the strongest ones is called Vanguard, and it lets a unit, they can do, like, what Hypercrypt does with moving units around every turn, they can do with 1 unit. But that 1 unit is a beast, and it's very hard to remove and deal with. They have a lot of movement shenanigans, and it as a as a army with a lot of movement shenanigans, I don't appreciate getting out movement shenaniganed. It makes it really annoying when he can do what I can do, but he has a unit that lets deep strike, that blocks deep strike in an aura of 12, which I don't have, which I would love to have. That unit is so fucking crazy good, and, like, all this weird uppy downy trickery and 3-inch deep strike is becoming so commonplace that units that block it outside 12 are becoming, I think, mandatory. Like, if your army has them, you have to take them. There's no reason not to do it. If I could, I would. But Necrons do not have that. So I win that game by just a tiny little bit. Yeah, this is hard to explain. I have a stratagem. Stratagems are something you can do for command points. You get command points throughout the game just by progressing normally, and they let you do little tricks. So this unit he has that teleports around and shoots really hard. All of those models shoot 2 guns, like a big laser cannon and some rockets. I have a strat that makes all the weapons in the unit hazardous. That means once he's done firing, he has to roll a dice for every gun in the unit. So six models have 12 guns. He rolls 12 dice, and for every one he rolls, a model in the unit dies, which can be devastating. Like, in a case like this, it's devastating for him because each of them are so expensive. And so he rolls 2 ones. 2 guys die, and now that unit is just neutered, right? It'll never put out as much damage as it did before. So I basically have free run of the board, but he has a list that's very much geared towards, he doesn't really have to risk anything, and he's still gonna score a shitload of points because he can just be anywhere he wants, right? So yeah, I end up winning that just barely. Then my last game was against a current member of the Danish WTC team, Simon. I end up losing by 7 points. Like, it was a very casual game. I think if he wanted to, he could have just absolutely dumpstered me. But he was testing some stuff for team play. And yeah, it was a very casual game. It was basically a free coaching session. He was just talking me through it, like every decision. It was very nice. He's a wonderful guy. Yeah, so anyway, all in all, I ended up winning 3 games and losing 2, and had a great time. But playing this Hypercrypt list means that basically every single game goes to time, because my stuff just doesn't die. And usually I don't wipe the enemy. So full 3.5 hours per game every single time. I cannot describe how tired I was after that weekend. It was fucking crazy. Like 5 games over 2 days. That is, what was that? That's 7, 10.5, 14, 17-ish hours of just Warhammer, standing up, rolling a shitload of dice, doing math, thinking about positioning and where to go. That was exhausting. So I'm kind of looking to play the other less brain-intensive detachments and just try and play some more honest Warhammer, right? It'll probably perform way worse, but I like the idea of some of the others. Like, they have some fun concepts and solid strats in them too. But they're just, every single list I build, I look at it and I go, this would be better if I just played it in Hypercrypt. Like, if I could just reposition these units every single turn, that would just be better than whatever I'm doing. But I'm kind of forcing myself not to do it. So just like today, I had a game, like I put together a list of some very suboptimal stuff just to try them and see how it felt. And I've had a game against a somewhat new player today. Like, I absolutely blew his ass out, right? But that was not the intention. There's like a newbie tournament coming up in a month that I'm gonna be helping out. I think I'm gonna be like a ref there, because it's for newbies, new players. So this guy wanted to test out his army for that tournament, and I think it might actually do okay. It has a lot of stat checky stuff in it that's gonna be rough for less experienced opponents to deal with. But he didn't know about half of the way you score points. You score 50 of your points from primary, which is like standing on spots. Like, you build the map and there's like 5 or 6 zones that you have to stand on to score primary. And that'll net you anywhere from 0 to 50 points. You get 10 points for having your army painted, and then the last 40 points out of a total 100 you get from secondary. And you can either draw random ones every turn, which I think is like way more fun, and the Hypercrypt Necrons do that so well, because we can just be wherever we want. So no matter what the objective is, we can just do it. And you can also just do fixed. But he had never played with either. And at the tournament he's going to be playing at, they will be doing that. So it very much quickly became a game of teaching him how his army plays, right? It was demons. I don't have a lot of experience playing demons, but I know some of the strat combos they can do. I know what makes them good. And he got to learn how to score points, I guess. like what to prioritize. Like, sure, you can charge this unit off the point into my unit because you want to kill it, but then come your next turn, now your unit isn't standing on the point and you're not going to score victory points. So is it worth it? And you should probably just leave a unit on there. Also got to try out some weird ass combos, like this combo of, I think, 170 points for the squad. Then you put 2 characters in there. So 300 points. They shoot 20 times, they hit 40 times, and then they reroll wounds. So basically anything you point them at is just destroyed. It's fucking crazy. I'm experimenting with like some of the planes we can take. They're way too expensive, but they're fun because they move fast and they shoot insanely hard. But they're so pricey for what they do. Oh yeah, I wanted to shout out my own Twitter channel, x.com/KolonelPanic. I have... Is it in my... I think it is. It'll always be somewhere near the top. I have a Twitter thread, like a message thread, where I post all the games I play, right? The scoreboard and usually some pictures of the game. I've been really forcing myself to log every single game just to show like a progression. Plus it gives me like a little diary of, oh, remember when I played this guy and this happened? Yeah. I want to shout that out because that's kind of neat. Finally, yeah, I would like to shout out all the YouTube channels that I watch for Warhammer content. Tabletop Titans are fucking, like, they're great. They upped the standard of online battle reports by 1,000,000%. Like the showmanship, the camera angles, the like good lighting, good producing, good banter. In like a huge Discord community, it's such a wonderful place to be and discuss strategies. I'm on there every day just bullshitting about Necron tricks. The other one is Wargames Live, which, like I mentioned, almost every single weekend he's in a new place in America, streaming from a like mid-size to big GT. He's gonna do some European tournaments too. And it's so great. Just seeing like the availability of content showing people playing this game that I love and just learning the tricks secondhand like that. It's such a blessing. Like I could not have joined this hobby at a better time than I did, because the resources and the attention just took off. And I think it's like one of the thank you, COVID, for making people stay at home for so long that so many people got into Warhammer, started collecting and painting. Meanwhile, like, all the tournaments were shut down in that period, so that also made like Tabletop Simulator take off. There's all these like extensions to Tabletop Simulator that lets you play like extremely close to real life Warhammer on these like pre-made correct sized maps and stuff like that. They have all the resources you need to play competitive Warhammer online, which has been a blessing. Like I've done it a bit. I think moving units in Tabletop Simulator is a fucking pain in the ass, so I don't actually like doing it very much. I like showing off the models I have painted. But having it available when everything was shut down was awesome. It's also been good just trying it, because online you can just make whatever list you want. You don't have to buy the models. So it's a great way to try out different armies for free, right? Yeah, anyway. I've been going on for a long time. I love Warhammer. It is such a huge part of my life. I love all the people I've met through it. You make so many friends. Like, you hang out with someone for 3 hours and play a wonderful game. Now you're friends, and you're gonna see them at another tournament, because I live in a very small country with only a handful of big tournaments every year. So everywhere I go, I see people I've played before, and we bullshit. We have a beer. There's always somewhere to sit, like when it's all big lunchtime. There's always a table ready, like to sit down and just talk to people that you've met in the previous games. It's a wonderful community. I'm so happy to be a part of it.